What's up, Starshines? Sylvia-Moonbeam here. Today we're going to be reviewing another Transformers figure. Today we're looking at Studio Series number 57, Off-Road Bumblebee from the Bumblebee movie. I really loved the Bumblebee movie. It is by far my favorite of the Transformers movies. And while I wasn't really too keen on reviewing the hatchback Bumblebee or the Beetle Bumblebee, the off-road version turns into a pretty slick little Jeep, and honestly, this version of Bumblebee just looks rather good. So let's open this up and roll intro to review this figure. I'm actually really surprised this version of Bumblebee even got a figure, considering we only see this version during the opening scene of the Bumblebee movie. While you could also argue that this is like a Cybertronian form too, most of the time that we see Bumblebee is in his Volkswagen Beetle form, um, while the version in his Jeep form is only really seen in the introductory section when he gets his vocal processor stabbed out by Blitzwing. Straight out of the box, this is actually a pretty nice figure. The wheels are nice and big and they actually have some tread to them, so they may actually be able to work on like a wooden table. Head is on a ball joint, though my ball joint for the head is really loose, as is the ball joints in my hips. However, pretty much every other joint in this figure, for me at least, is really tight. The shoulders, for example, require a good bit of force to put in, and twisting these knees, which actually the twist is up here at the top of the hip, is really difficult. Or, for example, by twisting the ankle, I actually pop off the foot. So this could use a little bit of WD-40 to loosen up the joints, but overall, not a bad figure. It looks really good. Bumblebee's only accessory is this cannon. It looks like to be about 6 barrels. I'm not sure how well this will show up on camera. And I wish it were symmetrical, but it comes with this little arm guard, presumably like a built-in magazine. Based on pictures both on the back of the box and in the artwork, it's very obvious this is supposed to be slotted into this section here on Bumblebee's right arm, giving him his traditional arm cannon. Now, if you want to do this, this is perfectly fine. Technically, this weapon can also be wielded in the left arm. However, because it doesn't have the built-in slot on the left side, you can put it in, just have to hold it, just holding it at kind of an awkward angle. So you can make it work, albeit he just looks a little funky holding it. Something else I want to add is that unlike most Bumblebee figures we see nowadays, this version doesn't have what we would traditionally call like the bumble wings. He does have these little wheels on his back, but all of his backpack actually folds up pretty flat. I'm actually surprised they didn't have the little door wings, and then I realized this is a Jeep. You don't have to deal with the doors. So it's kind of interesting that, you know, the one Bumblebee that doesn't have the door wings is, well, a Bumblebee without doors. Scaling-wise, Off-Road Bumblebee does scale well with other figures of the same vehicle type and, of course, other Bumblebees. Here is Bumblebee with the Deluxe class version, or excuse me, with the Warrior class version from 2015's Robots in Disguise. This version is supposed to be a older, more powerful Bumblebee, so it does make sense that he'd be a little bit taller. You can see they do scale fairly well, considering they are roughly the same size class. Here is Cybertron Adventures Deluxe Class Bumblebee. Again, they're about the same size, and as one would expect, smaller car mode, smaller figure. Overall, these two work really well together, and personally, this is my favorite Bumblebee. Here's a one-step changer from Age of Extinction. You can see they Unfortunately, scale pretty decently, though let's be honest, this figure has superior detail and painting and articulation. Of course, Offroad Bumblebee is not our only Jeep Bumblebee. We also have the World War II Bumblebee from Transformers The Last Knight. You can see that this one actually is a little bit bigger, but to be fair, he is an armored tank with a built-in artillery cannon. It makes sense that given all the extra armor and weaponry, he would be bigger, and it's nice to finally have a Jeep Bumblebee in yellow as opposed to the traditional military green. That being said, this version of Bumblebee not only has a backpack, but also has the bumble wings. Except instead of being doors, it's the wheels. Kind of like this one. And while we're on the topic of military Jeeps, here we have Siege Hound. Scales pretty well. He is one of the shorter deluxe classes, and you can see he's about a head taller than Bumblebee. Compared to most figures of his size class, Offroad Bumblebee is pretty small, about a head to a head and a half shorter than most deluxe/warrior class figures, and slightly taller than a Legends class or a one-step changer. If you're going for size, you're not really going to be getting your money's worth with this figure. However, if you're going for screen accuracy, he looks super good. Converting Bumblebee took 26 little steps, and I will say, having all those little tiny steps did feel like it added up. I think I may have mistransformed mine because mine wobbles a little bit. It does, when it does roll nicely, even on my wood table. And yeah, I'll admit, molding for the car mode looks good. You know, we've got the real grill as opposed to the fake grill that was the chest. We've got seats in there for who knows. Got a spare wheel in the back, which is really cool. Again, the wheels look great. I will say the fact that we have visible arm syndrome is a little disappointing. And we have storage of one of the guns underneath the back of the vehicle between the two legs, which is very similar to how Hound transforms, albeit there's no visible head syndrome for this figure. I would say that this is a decent transformation. However, I definitely think the robot mode is where this figure shines. We only get to see Bumblebee in Jeep form for maybe about 10 or 20 seconds total in the movie before Bumblebee converts to robot mode and fights Blitzwing. For comparison, once again, here we have Offroad Bumblebee with the one-step changer from Age of Extinction, basically the same size. Here's a Bumblebee from a Happy Meal, surprisingly about the same size, albeit this one is a pullback racer. Here he is again with Cybertron Adventures Deluxe Class Bumblebee. These two scale really well together, albeit I think this is a better car mode. Warrior Bumblebee from 2015, Robots in Disguise, a little bit bigger. Here's World War II Bumblebee from The Last Knight. As you can see, all that armor that folded up on the back is a little bit of a shell former. We've got, you know, a lot of this shell wrapping around the robot, making for a significantly larger Jeep/tank. And as I already compared, Hound from Siege. And surprising no one, Hound has his weapons out. In fact, if you wanted to, you could pop the gun out from underneath him and place it on the vehicle somewhere. For Offroad Bumblebee, getting the weapon stored underneath is rather difficult and took me a couple tries, and it doesn't even really fit in there that securely. If I put too much pressure on it, this will pop out. Unfortunately, there's no places to mount it either in vehicle mode, so you can't even wield your weapon while driving around, which is a little disappointing considering most vehicles nowadays have a way to store their weapons on the outside. Offroad Bumblebee is a pretty decent figure. Not my favorite Bumblebee by any sorts, but definitely better than some of the more recent figures. Unlike, for example, Robots in Disguise's figure, it definitely exemplifies Bumblebee better, but unlike, for example, the Cybertron Adventures Bumblebee, it doesn't have that cute factor. Bumblebee should be small, spunky, and kind of cute. And this seemed a little bit more rough and tumble. That being said, compared to the World War II Bumblebee we got a couple waves back, this definitely exemplifies the idea of a Jeep version of Bumblebee better, and the fact that it's yellow as opposed to military green feels more like his character. If you're a fan of everyone's favorite little yellow Bumblebee, I'd recommend maybe picking it up, but if Bumblebee's not your favorite character, maybe pass this one up. That being said, I'm looking forward to the War for Cybertron Deluxe Class Bumblebee, which is going to be a remold of Cliffjumper, so expect to see this figure again soon once I'm able to get that one. If you enjoy content like this, please leave a lunar laser like below and consider hitting that Starshine subscribe button in order to see more content like this. Until next time, I've been Sylvia-Moonbeam, and see you next time, Starshines.